Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky urged the United Nations to act against Russia, saying the Russian military must be held accountable for war crimes and alleged atrocities in Bucha and elsewhere in the country. Now the world can see what Russian military did in Bucha, but the world has yet to see what they have done in other occupied cities and regions of our country, Zelensky told the Security Council in an address Tuesday. He said those responsible should immediately face war crimes charges in front of a tribunal like the one established in Nuremberg, Germany, after World War II. He said Russian forces killed and tortured at least 300 people in Bucha, near Kyiv, before troops pulled out of the besieged town. The Biden administration on Tuesday announced $100 million for Ukraine that was expected to be used for Javelin anti-tank missiles. The announcement follows repeated pleas from Zelensky for more weapons to fight Russian forces. Lviv, Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russian forces still are trying to push deep into Ukraine in the east, but the Ukrainian army is holding them back. In his daily nighttime video address to the nation late Tuesday, Zelensky said Ukraine was aware that Russia was gathering up reinforcements for another offensive. Zelensky also said Ukraine is outnumbered both in troops and equipment. "We don't have a choice, the fate of our land and of our people is being decided," he said. "We know what we are fighting for. And we will do everything to win." The Biden administration Tuesday night pledged $100 million in defense aid for Ukraine to be used for Javelin anti-tank missiles. The announcement follows repeated pleas from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for more weapons to fight Russian forces that invaded on February 24, and after he detailed alleged war crimes in the city of Bucha to the UN Security Council. The U.S. said last week it would provide $300 million in security assistance to Ukraine, including laser-guided rocket systems, armed drones, ammunition and other equipment. Since February, the U.S. has provided the country with more than $2 billion in aid. Houston, NASA's record-setting astronaut Mark Vande Hey says he and his Russian crewmates focused on their mission, not the heartbreaking news unfolding in Ukraine, while serving aboard the International Space Station. His 355-day spaceflight ended last Wednesday with a landing in Kazakhstan. He returned to Earth in a Russian Soyuz capsule with cosmonauts Anton Shkaplerov and Pyotr Dubrov, the latter of whom also spent a year in orbit. In his first news conference back on Earth, Vande Hey said Tuesday that he did not shy away from the topic with his Russian crewmates while aboard the space station. "They weren't very long discussions, but I did ask them how they were feeling and sometimes I asked pointed questions. But our focus really was on our mission together." Vande Hey also cleared up any misunderstandings about the yellow with blue trim flight suits worn by their Russian replacements when arriving at the space station last month. "Those were the school colors of their university," Vande Hey said from NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, and not meant as a political statement. "The folks who wore them had no idea that people would perceive that as having anything to do with Ukraine. I think they were kind of blindsided by it." Nearly 4,000 people evacuated from war-torn Ukraine along humanitarian corridors on Tuesday, the country's deputy prime minister said in a message on Telegram. Irina Vereshchuk reported that a total of 3,846 people managed to flee the country Tuesday. But a convoy of 7 buses set to evacuate Ukrainians from Mariupol was forced to return after running into a blockade in the area of Mangush, she added. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson decried the savagery of Vladimir Putin's forces and appealed directly to the Russian people to share the truth in a video message Tuesday. "The reports are so shocking, so sickening, it's no wonder your government is seeking to hide them from you," Johnson said to Russian citizens, referring to the horrific wave of killings in Bucha, Irpin, and elsewhere in Ukraine. "Your president knows that if you could see what was happening, you would not support his war," Johnson said. He knows that these crimes betray the trust of every Russian mother who proudly waves goodbye to her son as he heads off to join the military. And he knows they are a stain on the honor of Russia itself, a stain that will only grow larger and more indelible every day this war continues. He urged Russian civilians to access independent information, and when you find the truth, he said, share it. Those responsible will be held to account, the Prime Minister added, and history will remember who looked the other way. The Biden administration plans to announce an additional sweeping sanctions package targeting Russia on Wednesday, according to 3 sources familiar with the matter. The package was organized in coordination with the G7 and the European Union, the source said. Under the new measures, the U.S. will ban all new investment in Russia, increase sanctions on financial institutions and state-owned enterprises in Russia, and sanctions on its government officials and their family members. Sources said the sanctions seek to inflict significant economic harm on Russia, and comes after U.S. officials and President Biden have recognized new evidence of further war crimes in Ukraine, particularly in the city of Bucha. In testimony before the House Armed Services Committee Tuesday, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said the U.S. and its allies should be prepared to counter Russian aggression in Eastern Europe for quite some time. I do think this a very protracted conflict, and I think it's at least measured in years. I don't know about a decade, but at least years, for sure, said General Mark Milley, the nation's top military commander. This is a very extended conflict that Russia has initiated. And I think that NATO, the United States, Ukraine, and all of the allies and partners that are supporting Ukraine are going to be involved in this for quite some time. Milley said it's still too soon to tell how Ukraine's fiercer-than-expected resistance might influence Moscow's plans in the future, but said the U.S. must be prepared to counter future Russian aggression as Moscow tries to expand its sphere of influence in Ukraine and other Eastern European nations. We are witness to the greatest threat to peace and security of Europe, and perhaps the world, in my 42 years of service in uniform, Milley said in his opening remarks at the hearing on the Defense Department's budget. The Russian invasion of Ukraine is threatening to undermine not only European peace and stability, but the global peace and stability that my parents and a generation of Americans fought so hard to defend. The mayor of Bucha, the Kyiv suburb where Russian troops allegedly carried out horrific atrocities, said on Ukrainian television Tuesday that some 3,700 residents remained in the city. Anatoly Fedoruk said almost all the main power lines in Bucha were destroyed. He added that medical care and other municipal services will return to the city after Thursday.